So this is our cloth, and I felt just giving this out might be a bit boring because we only have 3 flat things. So I added in accessories as well for you guys to have more fabrics to play with, plus more assets to practice the texturing you learned from the last week. Keep in mind, if you're still catching up from the last week, don't go in and start texturing the accessories. They are the secondary. Don't keep them as your primary. Also, if you don't have these things textured before, don't jump into accessories. Keep them as a separate practice, an additional practice for what you have learned before. But don't be fixated on doing the accessories first. Also, one important thing, when you're loading in the mesh, make sure you open it as an OpenGL, not DirectX, because that's the format I baked it in when I was doing that. So apart from that, most of the things should be done for you guys. So let's just start texturing our cloth. Before we do that, let me just go in and show you guys what I mean by splitting our UV seams where the stitches are. Sorry, where the seam in our high-res cloth are, like this, and like this. We have an edge going in and our UV is split between this and between that. So let me just go in and show you guys why we do that. So I'm gonna go in and bring in a tiled weave pattern. So if I just drag this guy on my base color, so this is the thing that we are going to tile. It's a bit unrealistic for the kind of cloth that we have here, but it will make things a little bit more clear for you guys. So let's say this is tiling. Let me just change the roughness. This is our pattern that's tiling all the way in our cloth. And if I go where our seam are, you see how the pattern is changing direction from here to here, indicating that it has been taken out and stitched together in real life, giving us this look. Let's say we never split our UVs right here, right? We had things going on all the way. I can show you guys what it might have looked, not exactly, but it's closer. So if I go to triplanar, and if we did not have any seam right here, this is what our tiling would have done. It would have come along and it would have gone straight up, which is pretty unrealistic if you think about how cloth has been constructed. Same thing for other guys. It's just continuing right here, straight, straight, straight. But if I change it to the UV again, you see now it's forming together as it would have been constructed in real life. Same for the other sides. These ones on the bottom, they're merging in where the seam is, not being together, kind of like this one, where it's just going on top of the seam, which is pretty unrealistic. So that is the main reason why we split our UVs according to the fabric that they have been made like. So once we have that set up, let's delete this and start texturing a cloth. So a few main things that cloth have that set it apart from other things is its tiled weaves or tiled patterns. The second is wrinkles, and the third being micro level of dirt or some imperfections, and also color. I'm talking these things are the one that separate cloth in terms of texturing than other things. In terms of modeling, you have a lot more than this, like folds, gravity and stuff. But in terms of texturing, that's all you have to keep in mind. So let's go in and start texturing the shirt. Let's create a fill layer. This will describe the base color of our cloth. Let's maybe give him a blue shirt. Let's make it rough because cloth are not that shiny. And don't keep your roughness to completely 1 because that will not give you any reflections to go from. So let's keep it somewhere around 7, 8. We can always change that. So once we have our color set up, one thing I like to do is break up my color because that becomes too perfect. So add a black mask, add a fill. Let's go to procedurals. Let's pick in Cloud 3, drag it, alt click to see what our thing is doing. Something like this. Play with the balance. Maybe somewhere along here. And if I go to my main layer, for my base color, if I pick the main one, we only want to change the color, make it a little darker. Awesome. Just a slight bit of breakup. Next thing we want to add is a tiled pattern. So this is our base color. This will only control the height. Add a black mask, add a fill. I'm just gonna bring in the same thing I had before. This cavity I got from Surface Mimic. You can bring your own weave patterns, because right now what we have inside Substance is pretty much limited in terms of cloth. The only thing we have is weave 1, 2, 3 and these ones, which are not that special and you don't want to use it for all the time. So let me alt click on my mask and see what it's doing. Go to my fill, change the tiling, and maybe tile it a little bit more as well. If I go to my fill layer again, go with my height, give it a little bit of height. It kind of gives me a sweater kind of look. Let's go back to my tile, decrease the number of tile it has somewhere around here, give it more height, and that should work. So another thing that we have to add is wrinkles. Okay, so for the wrinkles, I'm about to use some maps I got from Texture XYZ. So let me just create a fill layer, and I have a normal map. So if I disable everything and use my normal map, I have those wrinkles. I can tile them. I can change my normal intensity by going to normal and playing with the opacity, how strong or how not strong it is. So this kind of not goes well with the sweater-like look that we have. This wrinkles feels something from a thin material and the tile feels from a thicker one. So let me just disable it for now till we get something good. So right now it feels like a cotton thin shirt which is being worn by someone, and these are the wrinkles. Thing with these wrinkles is we used to sculpt that in our high-res, but we found out it's a lot easier to do those in tiles inside a shader, and they give a lot better result than a sculpted one. So that's how the production has become like. So right now the map I'm tiling is not well tiled made, which I have to change, but it's gonna give us a lot better result just now. So I can change the intensity of it, something like this. Next thing that we want to do, we don't want this thing to tile all around, like we don't want memory wrinkles everywhere, right? So let's just go in, add a black mask and pick in the places you feel that might have been deforming, or he has been folding his leg, arm or torso up a lot. So right now what we are getting is a control to our tile, how much tile it has, and the intensity of our wrinkles. And obviously the wrinkle will go on top of our main weave pattern. Make it look more thinner. Let's just go in and increase our tile more so it's not that thicker. Somewhere like this. That's too skinny. Kinda like that. So now we have a cloth which has wrinkles on it. I'm just gonna go in and disable it for now so I can see everything and if it's working or not. Let's just go in and change the color of our shirt. I'm gonna just make it dark grayish. Now we can see those wrinkles more pronounced. Same for the pants, same for the back pants, same for these pouches. So we got our base color, we got the tiled weave patterns, we got wrinkle patterns which are being tiled. Another thing that we still have to do is add stitches. Before we do that, let me just go in, disable my mask and paint it a little bit better. Alright, so once we are happy with our weaves and the wrinkles, let's start adding some stitches. So stitches, as I've been warning from the last class, never do that on your sculpt, because we are going to do that inside Substance Painter, and I'm going to show you guys why it's a lot easier to do it here. So all you have to do is create a fill layer, add a black mask, add a paint, and then we have, if I go to my brushes, type in stitches, then we have all of these stitch brush. So we're going to use the stitches small. That's the main basic one that we can change. So this is the stitch brush, and if I draw it, it's creating stitches as the name suggests. So under the settings, what we have is the size of it, which we can control through our brush. Flow, stroke opacity, spacing, same thing as any other brush. What changes it? If we come to alpha, and if we scroll down, we have stitch type, which is line right now. So it's drawing a line. If I change it to cross, it's going to draw a cross. And if I change it to zigzag, it's going to draw it in a zigzag pattern. So all of these stitch type have their settings associated with them. So for line, let's just go in and change the setting of the line. So what we have is count how many stitches will be following together. We have spacing, how far those two stitches will be, scale of those stitches in Y and X. You can make them skinnier or you can make them shorter. Then we have stripe opacity. What stripe is, you see those stripes in the middle that are in there. So if you have a small brush and if you drag it with those things on, it's going to give you a blurred alpha, which is not good. So keep the stripe opacity at 0 for most cases. If you have like a super large stitch where you can actually see those stripes, then go ahead and use it, but I don't know where those kind of stitch actually are, so there is that. So now using a stitch brush is pretty easy. You just drag it along the corner. Let me just make it 1 count, and we're going to make our spacing a little less between the stitches, a little more. Let's decrease the size, and yes, we have our stitch brush. To make our life easier, I'm going to enable lazy mouse. Distance 8 should be fine, and I'm just going to draw it where the stitches should be. Sometimes it gets a bit harder to go in an area like that. I can go in and make it orthographic and free rotation. So I can go in an area like that and paint it, but it's still too much work. The easier way is, let's just go to our UVs, and we have all of these patterns to draw on. So we can just go in, which area was I drawing on will be this one. So now we have our brush. We want to make it tangent alignment on UV, and size space will be textures. The lazy mouse changes in our UV, so we might want to decrease the distance, and we can easily draw these guys now. So let's say we have all of our stitches drawn in and we are done covering the whole area. So what about now? This does not look like stitches at all. This just looks like painted things. So now what we can do, since it's a mask, we can go in and on our main fill layer, disable metal, normal, and give it height. So they're popping out like stitches. Make it rough, and the color will be something dark, or maybe red, just to have it more pronounced. So those are our stitches, but they're still missing something. So if you notice on cloth, where you have stitches, those stitches combined together creates a indent on your cloth, a feeling that the cloth is going in, which it actually is because of the stitches. We are missing that effect right here. To get that, let's go to our mask, add an anchor point, name it stitch, add one more fill layer, add a black mask. This is not a fill layer. Add a black mask, add a fill, add our anchor point. So it's using the same mask. In our main stitch, we are going to apply a filter, which will be sharpen. We're going to apply this on top of our anchor point, so it's only affecting the main stitch layer. And on our second one, we're going to apply one more filter. This time we're going to use blur. Alright, let's make the color blue so we can see where it's affecting. On our blur, let's decrease it so it kinda goes out just a slight bit. Awesome. And in this one, let's disable everything. Not disable our color and roughness, make it super rough, the color really dark, and in our height, give it negative height so it's going in. So right now, if I change the light, all of those stitches are creating an indent. Let's go in and change the color for this guy as well and decrease the sharpen that we have. It's making it a bit too noisy. So let's just disable it for now. So now when I see the stitches, they are coming out and they're indenting our cloth more. We can go in, push our height a little more in, a little less. This is the effect that it's giving us. If I disable it, those stitches are existing out of nowhere. Let me disable our pattern so we can see them clearly. So they're existing out of nowhere. They're just there for some reason. But if we add these indents, they're actually doing what they're supposed to. So that's basically how you do stitches in Substance Painter. Another part that it has the benefit is if I don't like how my stitches are, I can just go to my brush, pick a brush like Basic Hard, disable everything, go back to my brushes, pick in a stitch brush. I can just go in and now draw my stitches without destroying any of the things, and I can erase it, add it again, erase it, add it again as many times as I want. I can change the settings as I please. Something like this, and I don't have to rebake my high-res scout to get the information out. It's non-destructive. I can always change the color of the stitches. And if you guys followed it along last week, and if you actually painted those stitches in, you will know how hard it is to do. So let me just delete this, we don't have any stitches for now. So that's how you do stitches in Substance Painter. You can go in and draw the stitches everywhere, and that's something that you should do. I cannot do because of the time constraint, but one thing that we left out was these damages. So usually when you have damages on cloth, these weave patterns or whatever you're tiling does not affect those areas. It gets blurrier there. Obviously, because you have damages, this cloth won't follow that much. So let's go in and get rid of these guys. To do that, let's find our weave, add a fill, go to our height, make it replace. Let's disable everything and keep the height on. Add a bitmap mask. I'm gonna pick the AO from my shirt, and that's going to describe where the mask is. We want the reverse of that, so add a level, invert it, that's our white. Let's change these to have more white around here. And now if I go back to material, see our weaves are not following here. Levels can be a bit more better, something like this. But now the mask is affecting in many places that I don't want. So let's go in, add a paint, make it multiply, zoom out, press 4, make it black, drag. And now with a hard brush, I can go in and draw these guys. So our weave is not going in the damage area. Same for these guys, same for this, and same for the other damages that we have. One last thing that you notice in some of the cloth is an imperfect white cloth particle just sitting on it. To do that, it's pretty easy. Add a black mask, add a fill, add a black mask, add a fill, go to our procedurals. We're going to pick in cell. Let's alt click to see what it's doing. Go to our cell 1, make it repeat more, zoom in, go to our balance, change it to get something like that. And now we want to invert it. So these are gonna be our dust particles that sit around on the cloth. It's obviously white from the beginning, so that's good for us. Let's make it more rough. Give it a little bit more height. Add a black mask. We already have a black mask, so add a paint. Make it multiply. Let's zoom out. Press 4, make it black. Drag. Press 1, zoom in with a hard brush. Let's go in and we can describe where those dust particles will be. Right now they are too pronounced. I mean, they exist there, but you don't want those to be seen that hard. So let's go to our base color and reduce it just a slight bit, something like that. Okay, so that's how you kind of texture a cloth. That's how you break it down on those layers. First you need a base color, then you need a weave pattern, then you need wrinkles. That's case specific. Some cloth will have different kind of wrinkles, some won't. Then you want to add stitches, then you want to add those dust particles. That's case specific too. Some of the cloth don't have that much dust particle, or maybe they have been cleaned recently. So that's something you guys have to think of your own. To finish this cloth, let's go in and add some decorations, because why not? So some cloth, you might notice they have some weird patterns. I don't know how to describe them to like actually decorate it. Some are cultural related, some has to do with story of the person that he has been wearing or something. So let's make this blue. Let's go in, add a fill layer, add a black mask, add a fill. So if I go to my procedurals again, if I scroll down and if I just type fabric, we have a lot of fabric options to pick from. Again, these are supposed to give your fabric some decorative perspective point of view, but they are not the fibers of your fabric, so they should not be used as weaves or these kind of tiled patterns. So let's try with the fabric cross and tile it more, something like that. Pretty fancy. Make it red or yellowish. Increase our roughness. So in an ideal world, the roughness of this whole cloth should be the same, but for these patterns, I'm changing the roughness just a slight bit. So when the light moves, they have a slight bit of a breakup on them and they look more appealing. The color seems to be a bit too pronounced, so let's decrease it. Something like that. Alright, so we have our cloth done, apart from the stitches that I deleted. Now if I see it, I still want to go in and change my wrinkles. So let's style it more or tile it less for the normal intensity. I might want to go with a bit more, something like that. Alright, so that's how you texture a cloth in Substance Painter. Again, things can change from case specific how the cloth goes. So for the assignment, you guys will have this cloth to texture plus other fabrics if you can make the whole cloth. So my advice, keep all of these cloth, the shirt, the pant and the pouch, 3 different kind of cloth, and pick up your reference and try to mimic that. Brings me to the same thing. The more you guys do, the better I can give you guys feedback and help you guys improve. So that's it for the cloth. Let's just move on to the next thing.